Right. Shawshank is a prime example of how you handle your shots. Because, listen.
I didn't disagree.
Listen, stop jumping in. You keep jumping into that. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Joe.
Right, so we've practiced that about 16 times, but let's just go with that one. Whatever happens now, we just keep rolling with. Welcome to the Shared Bunk podcast. So, this podcast is me and Scott, who are two brothers, and we're basically just going to talk about some films and just see how we get on. I mean, this week or this month even, we're focusing on cinematography. So we're going to talk about some interesting visual stuff. Keep it themed, fairly narrow down that road.
Yeah, we've got a few like specific topics, I guess, but kind of open to just sort of running with it.
So to start then, I guess, would you say it's fair to say that like there's a lot of people, like sound gets neglected a lot, but we'll talk about sound in another podcast, which is adding fuel to that already.
Mm.
Do you think you have more of a passion for sort of like, it's easy to lean on the visuals, isn't it, when you're watching a film?
It's like, the thing is, it's the first thing you spot, ain't it? Because it's, well, the visuals, like it's just naturally is going to be like, yeah.
I think good sound is, they say that good sound is like you kind of don't notice it in some ways. Visuals are obviously very, very flashy and kind of.
Yeah, because a lot of the time they make the sort of like style of it, don't they? Like,
but then there is an argument for like it's knowing when to not. Yeah. When to, isn't it? Some sort of visual styles are very kind of. I mean, some of my favourite films, while they have those big, bold, like brash, like over the top moments, they also it's the balance of like subtlety and kind of the camera work and the kind of cinematography and the kind of visual style that kind of brings it together. I'll say kind of one more time.
I was wondering if you were going to spot it. I was going to turn it into a drinking game.
Just sat there smashed, just wiggling all over the place. Great shots are obviously people live for it. I think there's so many cinematographers that like completely. I think so many people that that work on like kind of visual stuff, like they're always borrowing things from films, and I think it's because you can kind of quite quickly pinch that.
Yeah,
you
can spot things and see like a certain colour palette. You can spot things and see like a certain style and go, "Oh, I like that." Yeah. So a lot of the times directors kind of do that from what they've done last a lot of the time as well.
Yeah.
What would you say, top of your head, favourite cinematographer?
Okay, I'm going to end up giving like a cop-out answer. So, it's hard not to choose like the obvious, like Roger Deakins.
I figured that might be.
But that's just lazy, I think. I don't know.
I don't think it's lazy. I think it's easy because he's such a big name, but it's not lazy because like he is fantastic. Like when you see like all the stuff that he's done, like how Blade Runner was the first. Wait, Blade Runner 2.
Blade Runner 2 was the first one.
First Oscar that he ever got, wasn't it? I think he got nominated a few times, but he never actually got one. But
So Roger Deakins obviously shot my favourite film, which is The Shawshank Redemption.
I actually didn't know he filmed that.
You know he shot?
No, I actually didn't.
Really?
No, I'm not even saying that's
surprised by that.
Whoa! What?
It can't get crazier than this. It's gonna get nuts.
You turn into one of those crappy little, the little Facebook videos that you keep scrolling past where everyone's trying to avoid saying the word "whoa."
The what? The Facebook video.
Oh right, they're awful.
It sounds awful.
It's very bad.
So he shot Blade Runner, Skyfall, No Country for Old Men, Sicario. I think he did. So going back, he did. He's done loads. So he's done Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, he did The Big Lebowski. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He did A Beautiful Mind. He shot The Lady Killers, the 2004 version of it. I'm sure there's
what we were saying earlier, I was saying that like sometimes they kind of borrow from what they've already done before. Like he probably every now and then does, like he knows how to do like some of that like slick neo neo-noir lighting that you kind of get where he does like a scene of it in like Skyfall where the like that glass bit. Can you remember
in
it?
the
silhouettes going off and
I
like
can't remember
everything's
what
blue.
city
It's
it's
like a
in.
jellyfish or something.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
It looks sick. But like that's the thing. It's like looking at that, and then obviously you've got like Blade Runner. He borrows some of it.
Controversial opinion.
Go on.
Controversial opinion. I think the cinematography is the best thing about Skyfall. Well, I think we better turn the bloody cameras off now, don't you?
I agree.
Good grief.
Good lord.
do you agree, or do you think I'm? I mean, no, don't get me wrong.
I think like Skyfall's a very good film, but this is where my controversial opinion comes in, which is I kind of think that it was only that good because Quantum of Solace was that bad.
Yeah.
Like I think like it is a really good film, but like I think it's just like I'll naturally like when everyone was looking at like Skyfall when it first came out and everyone was like, oh, best Bond that's like come out.
Yeah, got a lot
I
of
was
buzz.
very much in the mindset of, I'm sure you probably were as well, it's no Casino Royale.
Yeah, see,
Like that's my favourite one.
Casino Royale is probably I think Goldeneye and Casino Royale, who are directed by the same person, actually, are my favourite Bond films. But I think that I think Skyfall's just so stunning, and it is just his cinematography. I'm amazed that cinematography, like he won his first Oscar for a film that was a sequel, which is interesting because his name has just been seasoned all over these classics. And he didn't shoot the first one. The thing that he won an Oscar for was for basically not copying, but like working off of kind of what the previous film was and developing it, which is obviously a skill in its own.
That's what I was sort of saying earlier is like when you see stuff like Big Lebowski, it's like I was going to sort of say like earlier when we were talking about like they kind of like borrow from some of their styles from like before, and then it kind of a lot of the time becomes like you kind of know because it's that visual same thing. It's like when you look at like Big Lebowski and you look at Blade Runner, there's no of course that's Roger Deakins. He's genuinely, it's kind of like like Spielberg's that versatile. So that's kind of what like Roger Deakins is for like.
He's definitely kind of got a mixed bag under his belt. He did sort of like No Country for Old Men.
He's an ace of all trades.
He did Prisoners, which is a great film. That's a really
Prisoners is incredible.
That's a rough watch. That's a really good film because it does that thing where, and I love films like this where they put ordinary people. Villeneuve, he directed it. It's they put ordinary people in these horrible situations and just test them, and then people think it kind of gets. I think that some of the knockback from that film was that it gets a bit kind of like...
It's a bit nasty.
Yeah, like it gets a bit like...
mean.
Like it turns into like a bit like torture porn almost, where it gets a bit sick for no reason, and the film doesn't need to go that far. And I think that's the whole point of the film, so I disagree. But I think the cinematography doesn't...
Like it's not quite in the same like way of like what, say like Hostel does it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like when Hostel does it, it's like hey, how can we make it gorier? Same with like Saw. Like a lot of the time it's just like, hey, let's come up with a way someone can lose an eye.
Yeah, it's like the story is based around these horrific things happening rather than the story has led to that.
It's
point.
written into it. It's written into it for the sake of. It's kind of like like with like Hostel and like Saw, you kind of feel like the violence is written and they make a narrative around it. Whereas you feel like in Prisoners that like when you watch the violence happen in that, you understand exactly why he's doing it, and you sympathise with him even though he's doing it. And I think that's why it's like so solid.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I like films that just spiral and keep going and go out of control, and I think it's good because it kind of. I think films. People don't like it when the thing is I like it when a film makes me feel uncomfortable because I know it's done something new.
Yeah.
But I understand there's a dark element to that people don't like with the Joker and stuff like that. It's the same thing where I think people were watching films. People watch films and then they don't like in Prisoners. You're effectively watching a man who's lost his kid and he thinks the only thing he can do to get his kid back is torture someone. And the person's mentally ill as well. So it's like it's very it's very conflictive of like.
But obviously, there's also like at certain points in it. Like, obviously, I won't go like too much into like the plot details and everything. But like, there's reasons why you'd kind of go, yeah, see why he's doing it, because when you're like that guy's mentally ill, you kind of always feel from the way that the film sort of makes him seem. you kind of know that there's something a bit off about him. I mean, Paul Dano also is just like, he's cracking in it. He's great in like any role.
But I think it's such a technically good film, but that's what makes it kind of unsettling for people, because I think the sound design and the cinematography, to go back to that, is like something that really kind of it's like it's so dimly lit and it's so kind of gritty, but without being, it's cinematic, but it's not glamorous. You know, when you watch things like Hostel, my image in my head as well is that it's like, maybe Hostel's a bad example actually, things like Saw, they're so dramatic, and like you're watching like
Hostel maybe the first one not so much, but then when you look at the second two, definitely. But the third one, when they're in that bloody like casino and like everyone's on show and you're like, okay, this is very, very style and violence.
That's Hostel, isn't it? That's Hostel.
Were you on about Hostel?
Yeah, you said Saw then, didn't you?
Did I?
Well, you said not in Hostel, but like in Saw, and I was like, yeah, I'm saying that.
Oh right, yeah, no, sorry.
My whole point.
I don't know what happened.
It's because you cut me off. If you let me finish my point, what it was was that Hostel is a bit more grounded, and that's what is unsettling about Hostel. Whereas I think Saw gets like wacky, and it's like, even when it does the flashbacks, it's all like flicking all over the place, and the shots are kind of like, and the music's like you got that Bond song in Saw actually, that like do 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 do. Is it that song? No,
I can't remember.
There's a song that sounds just like a Bond song. I'm sure they've ripped it off. Or if it is a Bond song. Why would they put Bond song? I don't know what I'm on about anymore.
I don't know what you're on about.
I'm doubting myself, but I'll show you after this.
But no, that's what I meant with the thingy though, because in the second and third Hostel, that's where they become where it becomes a lot more dramatic, and they're in like a bloody casino.
Yeah, that's like, which is a bit daft.
It goes a bit off the radar.
It's not a bad idea, because I don't doubt there are twisted places somewhat like that, but I think the film just makes it look so stupid.
I think that like the way that the characters are written are also a thing that make it worse. Because in the third one, it's like, I just escaped from the bad people.
Oh, do they say that in that?
Yeah.
The script's great. No,
the dialogue could do with a bit of refining, but I think she like just escapes from them all and is like, yeah, sound, I'm out of here, mate. And then, like, just kind of goes back and joins them so that she can... I don't know. I don't think there's really a reason other than that'd be a shot that would get people thinking sequel.
I mean, I think we can all agree that Hostel 3 is not the strongest of the three. And I think if I was to try and shamelessly tie it back in, the cinematography is not up there with the best cinematography. We went very off topic there. Where did we end up?
I thought we were going to talk about cinematographer.
No, we're just figuring it out. We're
just rolling.
This is the thing we're going to put on this.
The punches.
We're going to put on this, like, episode 1, cinematographer. People are going to be like, they spent 3 seconds talking about, like, yeah, I've seen a camera, and then we just talk about the hostels and which one's the best. Maybe we'll find a niche.
We just start talking about Shawshank for about an hour and then go, it's a good shot in that.
Yeah.
Don't specify what.
Right, okay, let's talk about it.
Let's
talk business. Let's stop flirting. You're my brother.
Beating around.
Just leave me alone. Give me some space.
Beating around the bush.
Is that what we're dancing around? Don't make it an itcher, like. Just like, So there's some shots. There's some shots in Shawshank that are above average. I quite like them. I think like
most of them really.
I think the ending's pretty good. There's a bit where it gets in the rain. I don't know if anyone's seen it. Look,
it's a niche film.
Right, Shawshank is a prime example of how you handle your shots. Because listen,
I didn't disagree.
Listen, stop jumping in. You keep jumping into that. because it knows when to go for it, and it knows when to rein it in. So you've got your moments, like you got the moment like where you're laughing at. You got the moment where like the camera.
I was expecting a rain pun about him being in the rain.
You got the like. I know what you mean.
I was just expecting that to go somewhere else.
No, all right, look, we're all getting a bit excited. It's episode 1. It took 50 intros to get
the debut.
It's the debut.
Introducing.
It's season 1. What was I going to say? Shawshank. Let's talk about it. we'll get this out of the way because this could actually be a whole episode. I mean, it probably will be one day.
I don't doubt it.
If this runs for more than 3 episodes, the 4th will probably be Shawshank. We'll do cinematography, audio, editing.
Audio, we'll just be talking.
Sound editing, Shawshank.
Audio, we'll just be talking about how good's the bit where he hits the pipe with the rock during the lightning.
Best bit of audio I've ever had in a film ever.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say, I think it does. I do think as a film though, it does know how to kind of not always be throwing too much at you. I think it's like something I've noticed in some of my weaker attempts at the craft. is like constantly being like, this shot needs to be like everything. And obviously you should be thinking about it in that way, but not making every moment the biggest moment, because then it just comes off as like, oh, I don't care about any of this. This is all like up here. Yeah. And I think the film, I think it does a really good job of painting. One, it does a really good job of making the small moments count through cinematographer. So the bit where he plays the record over the prison is obviously impressive because, and that's kind of a big moment, but it's exaggerated by like the camera pulling through the like going through the hospital, kind of going up and showing the courtyard. These like big like vast shots, and he's only put on a record, but like it scans the prison with the camera. It completely just goes over it. And also, I think it's really cool. There's a really good like a drone whatever shot. I don't know if they were messing around with drones back in the day when they made Shawshank, but like there's one that kind of soars over the prison, and like as he's going in, it kind of makes the whole place just seem like scary and big, you know. And I just think it does that really well, but at the same time it knows when to make those little, it handles its moments perfectly, and I think that's kind of the thing, isn't it? Like the bit where manages to get everybody a beer, it's like
there's certain bits in it where like you feel like the shots and like the cinematography in it do just as much to tell you something than like the dialogue. Because that bit where he gets like the beers, it could easily have been like, I mean, like it's a beautiful bit. It's ridiculous. Even if they did it badly, it'd been great. But they didn't.
Should we just watch it? Fob this off.
Turn it off. But I was just gonna say, like,
what are we doing this for?
I was gonna say though, like,
it's right waste of time.
You know So I lost my train of thought.
I'm so sorry. For one now.
But no, sorry. So yeah, like you could like get that scene, and then instead of having like, you know, the shot of him just kind of like over there, like it just say something on the nose like, oh no, I don't drink. You guys enjoy it more, and it probably wouldn't have been as good. But then like, you know, it's the shots that kind of like make it flow.
Yeah, I mean, he does say something, but it's simple. He does say something to that extent.
It's more poetic though, ain't it?
It's kind of like, it's nice because the good thing about Shawshank, good thing about Shawshank is that he
multitude of
hear me out. It's the
diamond in the rough of all of the things you don't like about Shawshank.
And I love this as well. It just does the things that I like. You've got a quiet protagonist, so it gives the film a big chance to use the elements that it does. So the narration doesn't feel tacked on because you've got somebody who you actually are using as a window into who this character is, because you don't know them. Like you don't really know much about him all the way through it, and it's like it is the visuals, it is the music, it is like Morgan Freeman speculating what he thinks about him.
Yeah.
That kind of brings that brings the character to him. And then it means when you do start to find out and you just start to get comfortable in the prison and he opens up, it means a lot against those things that you kind of were picking up on throughout the beginning of the film. And the marriage of those two is what kind of makes the ending of it so powerful, because you really care by the end. As well, and that's just the character, as well as the actual storyline doing kind of similar things to the point where you don't realise what's happening at the beginning that fleshes into the end, that makes the whole crescendo of the film just like, I could cry just talking about it. I love it. I actually love it a lot.
I didn't know you were a fan.
Yeah, so.
That one I didn't know.
I mean, I've got my only tattoo on my arm, and then I've got a poster on my wall. And I don't have much. I've only got these 3. I think a couple like there, and that sounds like loads, but I've got like 5 things on my wall. And
you've got one film, like you've got one like
thing,
movie poster.
It's a massive Shawshank.
It's a big boy.
This is the COVID office, by the way. This isn't the official business time.
So Roger Deakins.
Hostel free. let's give them what they want.
Give them what they want. Hostel 4?
You want more? We want more Hostel.
I don't think anybody wants. In fact, yeah, no. Some people probably do want more. Hostel.
Our dad.
Oh yeah.
Our dad loves awful horror films.
Yeah. Hey, you take that back. Sharknado is a classic.
It's not just Sharknado though. It's like Shark Octopus versus Tiger King.
Just Joe Exotic beating up an octopus.
Hey, I would. Well,
I
wouldn't. I was like, I'd pay to watch, and I was like, I don't think I want to see him just kick.
If it's a fictional piece,
Yeah, I'd watch that.
I'd watch that.
I'd pay.
If it's the Nicolas Cage biopic that we've got coming out,
Do you reckon they should make a Nicolas Cage biopic where Nicolas Cage plays Nicolas Cage, and Keanu Reeves?
he is the kind of person who would do that.
Yeah, like.
Although, wait, do you mean that in the same way of like getting like a bit of a Honey Boy sort of thing, where it's like an inspired by, or do you mean like a bio?
I mean like he plays
a pick of the
He
bio.
plays baby Nicolas Cage all the way up to granddaddy Nicolas Cage.
Pops out, full mustache and everything.
Oh God! Why do you think mustache when you think Nicolas Cage? He doesn't even have one, does he? Well, I don't know what he has now.
We were talking about Keanu Reeves.
It's going to be hard work, isn't it? I thought we were talking about Hostel 3. No, we moved on. I was moving
talking
on.
about Roger Deakins. Popped out of the camera.
We can talk Roger Deakins films. I mean, we were talking about Roger Deakins films. We were talking about Shawshank.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just always forget that that's one of his films.
Maybe I shouldn't exhaust Shawshank because it's kind of...
Because we're going to come back to it.
Because I can quite easily shoehorn it into any conversation, and it's going to be 10 minutes in, and we're definitely over 10 minutes
season it. Season it with it. You just season any video with like a little bit of Shawshank.
I also am aware by
Shawshank salt of everything.
It's just oh my god, it's just amazing. I need to have a dip and just cool off while I'm thinking about it, and just
it's quite toasty.
Just relax. It just makes me warm and bothered. Yeah, it is great. But at the same time, I am aware that it's the #1 film on IMDb. I'm not, I think it's one of them things where like I struggle with it because I think it was one of the first films I watched at a young age that really just made me go, Jesus, these are amazing.
Just films.
How good can a film be? Like I just didn't think I could care in that way about a film. And then like I think it's just personal. Like it's just grabbed onto me for that. So there's probably films that over time I probably kind of not prefer, but like I go, oh, that's amazing in just as many ways. But that film's just always been, it's always been my first.
My first love.
It's just. You wonder what could have been. You wonder what could have been.
You've got history, haven't you? You've got history.
You've got history. You can't. People just don't get it. People don't get it. No matter where you take it, it causes problems.
No, I think.
I'm over it.
The film's #1 on IMDb. I'm pretty sure people get it. Everyone gets it. The only people who don't get it are the ones who go, I don't know why it's #1.
People go,
they're wrong.
People go #2 or 3, fine, or it's good. To be fair, I don't think I actually don't think I've ever heard someone say it's a bad film or it's overrated. I don't think.
I've heard people say it's overrated in the form of
#1 on IMDb, the best film ever
#1.
made. Yeah.
But like, that's just personal preference, ain't it? Like,
true. Yeah, that's
anyone can like a film more than another film.
All right, Scott, give me something else.
Right. Do you want to ask what my favourite?
What's your favourite cinematographer?
So. I forgot his name now.
We've got Manuel Lubezki.
That's the one.
Is that how you pronounce it?
That's the main reason why I was pausing. I didn't want to get it wrong. But yeah, I think it's.
You bought time well because then I said it, and now it's fine, and we'll definitely cut this out. So, what's your favourite film of his?
It's got to be Children of Men, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like, I think that like he's one of those working like every film that I've seen of his, especially the ones that like do seem to borrow this whole like using a load of long takes sort of thing. Like,
yeah,
he's really really fantastic at that. But like, Children of Men's it's just that as a film, not even just for its cinematography, but that as a film as a whole is just brilliant.
It's hard to talk about a film without getting lost in everything because it's all so good. It's like sometimes it's easier to almost talk about cinematography in a film because you can isolate it in your head. Because with a film like Children of Men, you start to talk about cinematography and you go, oh, it's great because this happens and then this happens, and you get lost in kind
That's
of.
That's the thing. It's like obviously it's one of those things where like everyone who has watched any videos online about what are the good long takes has probably seen the car scene if they've not seen Children of Men, just because that one is just one of the standout ones. But even just like looking at it like tonally, like, you know, because obviously it is a bit of a bleak film, but like, and I think that like there's an argument where I think like some people would probably say that it looks a bit boring because like the footage almost looks like a bit like too greyish, like a bit dull, but like it works so well for the tone of it, and it's like I think it's really good also the way that like there's so many long takes in it where like there's the main guy from Sons of Anarchy, Charlie Hunnam, who's also in Pacific Rim. Like he's in that as well.
Well, let's talk about that then, because that's what's good about that is that like what you're kind of saying is that it knows its place because it is quite grainy and arguably something that, like I say, is almost makes the hard sell in terms of like you look at a trailer for it and it kind of doesn't look all that appealing because a lot of the kind of beauty in the shots in Children of Men are how they're executed rather than the kind of colour. The colour brings you into the world and makes it feel very grounded and real, which doesn't look very exciting on a trailer or whatever. But when you
immerse into that world, that's the one.
Yeah,
like,
it brings you in.
But it's just like that's one of the things that's like so funny about like when you see like, you know, people like Charlie Hunnam in it, and he's just sort of like he's one of those people. He never gets like a close up in it, but like he's kind of always like a bit of a threat going on it. But like it's because he's part of like a gang. I don't think he was like very big when they made this, like to my knowledge anyway. But like he'd probably done like a few bits and bobs. But it's like there's just like a whole gang that's like chasing him, and it's like you never know. Like when you just see dreadlocks in the background, you're like, oh my god, they're after him again.
In it, isn't it? Yeah. I thought that he obviously did a good job with Birdman.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic with that.
I think
like it's kind of like shot to be all kind of like 1917, ain't it? Where it's like all supposedly one like continuous shot. Obviously, there's like a few cuts in there that are like sort of like smart transitions, but
Birdman for me warranted it more than a lot of other films do. I sometimes feel that the continuous shot without any obvious cuts it can be gimmicky, and I know that's not an original thing to say. I just think it's like I think so. For example, I love 1917. I thought they did a really good job of it because I do think it kept you in it. I do think there was like they
kept the intensity, but I think by doing it may have lost like a little bit of the scope. Like it seems like he was there and now he's just moved for about 5 minutes and now he's in the next big place, and it's like you kind of feel like you've skipped out a lot of journey. That's
a good point. Like there was a point where, don't get me wrong, it does cut at one point, and I'm glad it did actually. But there is a point where you kind of, you're right. Like it's like an hour has gone, but so much story's happened, and it's a bit convenient. Like, you know, there's a bit where a car breaks down, and then they have to get off and push it, and it's like, even the journey would take an hour. But in this case, obviously, you can't do that in the case of this film. So
yeah, it would make it a little bit more boring to do that. But then again, that's why I think that like doing one long immersive shot during like one battle scene seems so much bigger a deal than like, you know, when you get like. Well, it's even stuff like Game of Thrones has like quite a few like long choreographed like shots where it goes from like one person to like the other and then back to the other one at the end. And then like, but 1917, it's like sometimes the parts where it's like the journey between and it loses a bit of the journey. Whereas
that's where I think that. So what I think was so strong about Birdman is that what I sometimes feel with the long takes is that they're impressive technically, but I sometimes think it starts to feel like theatre. I think it starts to feel very much like, you have
Which
a
is
moment
fine with Birdman.
which obviously works with Birdman because it's all set around him going on stage, and it feels a bit like weird, but it works. But when I do think that like when you're
it's like those two themes kind of blend together though, ain't it? Like it makes sense that they do it.
Yeah, I do think that like with sorry, I've lost my train of thought. You cut me on. I was like, I had a point and I've lost it.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I do think with Birdman it works, is what I was saying, and so things like 1917 is good because it's so action based, so I think it keeps you in it. But I think some films where they drag on these long takes, you're left with enough time to kind of observe and not you're not kind of being prodded along. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like rather than being poked along and like having cuts that kind of steer you and go, oh, this is new, this is new, this is new. You're sat there watching it and you're kind of going, you kind of watch it and start to go. It can be immersive, but if not handled well, it can go completely the other way. Is my point. Where you're sat there watching something that doesn't feel real and it keeps going, and you're like, oh, I'm watching. You can see the blocking, for example. People walk and move and they stand to the left, and you're like, I've just watched all of that be rehearsed.
That was one of the things that I think was a little bit problematic for me when I first watched 1917. I was like, I think that film's fantastic. I think it's great.
We think it's great.
It is great.
Before we pick it apart, it's like we're just saying how good Birdman is.
The one thing that like I do think was, I'm kind of glad that I spotted one early on. Because basically, I think my obnoxious ass just walked into that cinema and was like, I'm going to play Spot the Cut.
Yeah, you did that as well. So I was watching...
But then the thing is that like I think very, very, very early in, there was one that was quite noticeable for me.
I guess.
And then, was it the one where the like...
truck goes past?
Yeah.
There's like, but that's really weird, I guess, that as well.
Because that was the first thing I spotted. Like that was the first one I spotted.
Do you think it's like I'm not because like we're obviously not on the filmmaking standards of the great team behind 1917, but do you not look at that and go
speak for yourself?
Do you look at that and go like? Do you look at that sometimes and go like, oh, that cut was really obvious. Like, could they have masked that a little bit better? Like, or did they just clearly not care? I just don't know, because like when you see the thing go past, it kind of like zooms in and it feels a bit like, oh, there was the cut, you know. Like I was supposed to not notice that, is what I felt, I don't know. I wonder if that's me looking for it, or the team not like doing that much to mask, because they obviously could do a better job because they're brilliant. Like there's some moments where it goes in the dark and you know it would have cut there, but it's seamless.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I think some of them are very, very, very like easy to do perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, and I think like, well, I say easy to do. I probably won't be able to do them, but like when you consider like the sort of like level that they're at, like that bit where they like dip down, they go see Colin Firth. It's like that one's probably quite an easy one to do because it literally kind of goes to black.
Yeah,
for a bit.
You could see how you would do that. You cut.
Yeah, like you can probably see like the tiniest bit of white from like the moisture of the dirt. Or something like that. And it's like you like. But because the camera's moving, it doesn't stand out to you when it moves. No, it's very, very, very similar to like, you know, in Birdman where it dips to the water as he's like streaking outside or whatever he's doing.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing, isn't it? That's one of my pet hates. I think is like moving for a cut, but for no reason. Music videos doing it all the time. Don't get me wrong, like it's a good technique, and we've used it good and you can use it in good and bad ways. Yeah. I think it's one of the things I notice it after I've watched something and go like, oh, that was. There's a music video, I can't remember what it's for now, where like it's kind of they're all dancing and it kind of goes up to the sky. It's a big band. And it goes up to the sky, back down, and it's like. I didn't used to bother me, and then I feel like recently it's just I seem to just notice so much.
It could very well be an okay go one.
Yeah, it's kind of like up and then we're back, and it's like, well, that was just to do a cut rather than. I guess sometimes it works because it's like fluid and it's part of the dance or whatever, and it's the same with like things like 1917. But sometimes it's like we don't want to cut, so we're gonna dip to the grass and back up, and you're like, that wasn't like. It's not a bad thing. It has to be done right, is my point. And I think if the motion serves it, say if you're spinning and you exaggerate that spin to something else, it can look really effective. You know?
Yeah. There's different ways of doing it, ain't there? It's like sometimes I think that it works a lot, sometimes I think that it doesn't, and it's like this is why I think that like when like going back to what we were saying just about like Emmanuel Lubezki, it's just like every time that he does it, I feel like he does it really well.
Yeah.
Like even though I'm not like a fan of. It's probably been too long since I've watched it, but I don't remember liking / caring that much when I watched like Gravity.
Yeah.
But
the
cinematographer. Gravity.
When we first
and then when the cinematographer
Gravity from Leicester. Yeah, buzzing. That was Mank. It's from Manchester.
That was...
Yeah, buzzing, nice. But I did my Manchester accent's horrendous.
I don't even know what that is.
It's not even... Do you know what I'm doing? I'm not doing an impression of a Manchester accent because I can't do one. I'm doing an impression of...
someone who's trying to do it.
There's somebody else who I've heard do it.
You're doing an impression of a Leicester lad in Sheffield pretending.
No, but like somebody, there's a comedian who does an accent like that, and I'm trying to copy that and absolutely ruining it. But yeah, I think going back to it, I think the seamless take thing it's really good, and like the kind of continuous, like not making things look like they cut is great when it serves the purpose. Obviously, I actually think not like 1917 does it great. Children and Men's great because I feel like it adds to it. I think the beginning of La La Land's really strong. Ooh. I don't know if that is done in one continuous take or because that doesn't actually cut, does it?
I don't think so.
It looks like it does, but I don't think it does because I've seen I think the filming of it they did a bit to kind of prove it. I think because they do these like whip pans, but I think they're genuine, but they look like you could cut there, and just to get the second half of it sort of thing.
But it's one of those ones where even if there was some kind of cut in the middle of it, it's kind of like, going back onto like, just, this is more based off of that one cut in 1917 that I did notice, as opposed to all of the like probably hundreds of them that I didn't.
Yeah, there's quite a lot.
Whatever it is that they do with La La Land, you can kind of feel like the blocking still feels like it belongs to the last shot if there was a cut, which is why I feel like there probably wasn't a cut. But if there was, it just shows how...
There's some really good examples, though, of like seamless CGI. So I in some ways think they kind of do it. I honestly think they kind of leave these like slightly obvious cuts in to make you realise almost sometimes. Like, because I don't know, to almost make you go, that was a one long take. Like, for example, you watch the beginning of 1917, if I'm right, it probably goes that whole bit where he gets up from the tree and he walks all the way across, and then, like I say, they go in, they go out, they get to the van, then the van cuts, but it still makes you go, oh, that was all done in one go. Like, it makes you stop rather than accept it. Because if you accept it, you don't appreciate it. If you sit there through the whole film thinking there's not a cut, you forget about cuts and you're just by the end of it going like, this is cool, rather than going like, oh, this is amazing actually, because they keep doing these things in one take.
I guess it kind of like baits you into, hey, remember the thing.
Yeah, like we're doing this by the way. You're like, oh yeah, great.
You're like, oh my god, you are.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't know if I'm right, but I think there's an argument for it. Like I think there's an element of like,
there's an argument for even if that's not an intentional thing, that helps anyway.
But that's the thing with cinematography, isn't it? It's like kind of how much of it does it want to be the film, and how much of it do you want to watch it and go, that camera work was amazing. Like sometimes it's good to come out of the film for a second and go, that was amazing, that shot, rather than like, I know it's all about being immersive, it is, but I think sometimes you do take a step back and kind of go, that was just amazing. Like you go, oh wow, because and those little moments like that where it stops are the moments where you get to breathe and go, that was good. Like La La Land, the whole beginning is made to look like it's one long shot. The whole song and dance is one long shot, and I think it is filmed in one take. And then it goes, bang, La La Land. And that's the moment where you're obviously meant to go, whoa, here we go. That's the idea. Yeah. Whereas, like, if it kept going...
It gives you that brief moment to turn to whoever was next to you in the cinema and go, was that all done in one take? Was that... I think that was a long take. Was Emmanuel Lubezki on this?
Is that how you're going to do it? No. I think we know. I think we know who did that, even though it wasn't him.
It definitely wasn't him. This is going to be good.
I'm going to start doing that. Well, I'm not actually. That'd be awful. But I imagine being in a cinema and you just two rows from the front. This is going to be good. They're really loud.
Oh my days. just like whispering, even though you're sat next to no one, going, I think he's gonna get the Oscar.
Like, there's something really funny about whispering loud. Like,
because it's not whispering.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
talking in a weird voice.
You know, when someone's like, you do get it though, don't you? Like, people in the cinema, they're like,
Yeah.
excuse me, do you mind if I just get in there? I'm just gonna nip out and get some popcorn, whatever. And you're like, literally, like, just get up and go, excuse me. Like, it's fine. Like, we can it's the same difference. Excuse me, do you mind if I just squeeze past? It's like, why are you shouting? Like, you may as well just shout it.
You may as well just go, yeah, I'm just gonna squeeze.
This is gonna be good.
It's gonna be good. But no,
That's really nice.
But no, what are you saying about the whole doing one big long take or like style to it? I think it's like, you know, when you do get like long takes that are like where you say with like La La Land, how there's one long take in that, and that's why the long take stands out.
Yeah.
Whereas like, and then you get the same thing with like a few of the long takes in Children of Men.
Yeah.
And you get the same thing with like, you know, I think Gravity's also like that. I know. Gravity, I don't think was filmed as if it was one. It's been a while.
I didn't really.
But I feel like I can't remember it being.
Yeah. It was a good film. I just didn't like it that much.
I think I may have watched it a little young. I know it's not an old film, but like I
You're
feel
not that
like
old, and it was it came out last year.
I mean, my brain was young.
I've matured.
I've matured since.
You got a seasoned Barnet. Seasoned.
Swirly me red.
It's not red. It's a glass of water.
Yeah, I know.
I like that. Yeah, no, I thought Gravity was technically very impressive, and I think it was a good film. I just didn't. It's that thing where sometimes a film is spot on, and I'll rinse this point again and again, but I don't care. Sometimes a film is amazing, but it just isn't, like, it doesn't bother me that much. Like, it's just not the elements you finish. You go, that was actually spot on. I just didn't really care about it that much.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't.
Like, you can sing it all the praise in the world, and it's kind of like how we've sort of said about films before, where we're like, these films haven't necessarily got the best reception, or like no one really cares about them, but like we'll probably go, I don't know why
I like it,
but I really like that.
Yeah. Certain actors, you can just be Bad Batch. Yeah, it's like a bit. I know it's kind of a bit.
Actually, that's quite a good one for cinematography.
Yeah, it's a nice looking. It's a bit ridiculous, and it doesn't really make much sense, and it loses its way a little bit. But then it ends on a White Lies song, and I love White Lies.
You just gotta forget
it. Wins me over by
point,
that point. I think there are some good bits in it, but like it is it's not the strongest film ever. Obviously.
That's how I was at points in because like, you know, the documentary Behind the Gap.
Yeah.
There's like at the very end of that, like mountain goats come into it, and I was like, oh, hello, that's the one. Now it's me fave.
What we got next on the list to chat about? You talk.
Okay.
And I'm going to check these cameras again.
Do you want me to talk while you're checking the cameras?
Yeah.
Cool.
Kick on.
I
saw your face just as you looked at it. It was a bit much.
Well, coincidentally, Joe, what a segue. It was going to be about documentaries.
Okay, pause for a sec.
Okay. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Scott.
Welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
But yeah, should we talk docs? I feel like there's a few like documentaries with like under the category of, not that anything doesn't fall under the category of cinematographer, but it's quite a loose one. Really.
They are quite common. Yeah. Cameras are used more often than not in films.
If it's a documentary without any visuals, it's just radio news, really.
Radio news. That's a good point. Let's talk documentaries. I mean, I don't. I'm trying to think of like a really visually stunning doc that I've seen, or something that really. I mean, documentaries are often like my favourite documentaries tend to be kind of like, not what's the term for it? I can't get words out.
Is it like more based on the subject?
Archival? How do you say the word? Archival? 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 Like based on like
computer.
based on like it's that battery, as you can tell.
Oh shit.
Like based on like found like old photographs and the archive docs. I was trying to think of the word for archive, but I can't.
I don't know what I don't know if archival is a word, but we'll go with it.
I reckon if I had said it confidently, like we would have been
It'd be
sound, but I just butchered it by saying it like I was scared.
So you like things with old things?
Yeah, I do. I'm an old boy at heart. I think like stop purring at me. What's going on? Yeah, like to me, it's not that obviously. I do watch documentaries and I like that element, but I just tend to like my favourites, or some of my favourites tend to be like music docs or like going back over the years, and I like it when people dust off the old photo albums and footage and present them in weird, wacky, interesting ways, almost more than the kind of crisp and clear. Because then I think it feels more genuine sometimes. Yeah. But that's not to say you can't have that. Obviously.
Can you think of like an example or anything?
Aimer is like one of my favourite documentaries, the Amy Winehouse stuff.
I've not actually seen that one.
It's really good, really good. But obviously, like there's no. I mean, in some ways, it's like not kind of. It doesn't really use cinematography to that much of an extent because it's all old photos and old media clips and whatever. It's like it's very much an editor's kind of film.
There's a few like that actually. I think like that LA. I've not seen either of these two, but I'm gonna say two examples anyway. But that Apollo 11.
Yeah, I've not seen that.
That's supposed to just be like all archive footage, and then I think so's LA 92.
I've not seen that either.
Think that
Mine are more rock docs that I like Supersonic, the Oasis one. That's really good for the same reason. I also like it that they choose the sound bites so they can. I like the fact that they've gone out for their interviews. And they've just sat down with like a tape recorder and just had chats, and then they've put the interesting stuff over the top, and they don't use the talking head so much. I think that works really well a lot of the time.
Yeah,
that someone against a thing going like, when I first met him, it was this, and it just doesn't.
It just keeps it more like.
Just keeps the energy.
I guess. It kind of helps with the whole music vibe because it just. I don't know. You make a documentary on someone creative. You kind of have to be creative about doing that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of like an important part of it.
Well, yeah, you try and mirror their personality a bit, but I think I think certain things warrant it, like Planet Earth. Like we were saying, like we were talking a bit before we came on about like how much work goes into getting those shots and how impressive it all is, and I think it warrants it because the footage is just astounding, and it's so observational that it has to be like that. And it's just amazing. You can't really knock Planet Earth and that all that work for the cinematography is kind of like.
It's like I feel like when you watch Planet Earth, there's a bunch of animals that you look at and you go, "That's here." You look at it and you go, "What's that doing here?"
Yeah.
Water, freaks me out.
I remember
freaks me out now after Planet Earth.
I remember just watching the underwater episode in my first year at uni and just being like, "These are aliens. These are aliens." I was saying it to my ex at the time, like, these are aliens.
So it's when they're like see-through, and you can like see a little brain in that.
Yeah, and it's just, there's fish that like, there's these like,
quote-unquote fish.
There's these female fish that eat, what do? They mate with the male fish, then they turn into a male, I think, through the mating process, and then they eat the male. And then go and find some more females. And I'm like, whoa.
That's hardcore.
That's a weekend. Like, mate, that's a lot. It's like, it's something like that. Like, it's so bonkers. Like, they turn in, like, they're something to do with their reproductive process. Good for word to me.
I hated the fact that you said...
I should have winked at you, shouldn't I? I regretted that. Yeah.
I hate the fact that you just winked at me after saying reproductive process.
Reproductive process.
I'm your kid, bro.
Like there's something about that where like there's that process like just changes because they basically grow out their heads. It's just I can't remember it very well, but as you can tell,
a lot of things happen.
Yeah, but it's just so weird, and they're like they just eat them. You're like, oh man. You're like, imagine if that was a human. Imagine if you had people coming back from like corp or whatever, like bringing people home, and then you just like they wake up in the morning and she looks like them. Imagine, you know what I mean? Imagine waking up and that's happened. where someone is you.
Intense night.
It's a lot. It's a lot just to talk about.
I think
imagine they eat you.
I think it'd be a lot to wake up next to me.
I've woken up next to you before, and
It's a lot.
And imagine waking up next to me, which you have done, and then I eat you. But we could obviously not reproduce. Because that would obviously not.
That would be a lot.
Yeah, that would be an awful. That'd be a horrendous morning, really, wouldn't it?
But there are some less scary creatures on
Yeah, some of them.
Some of them, there's some that are just funny. Do you remember that little bird that just keeps like jumping up and down? He's got like, it looks like he's got sequins on him. He's just
yeah.
It's like a little black bird, and I think he does that with his wings. Just like puts them up, and then it's got like a little.
What does he do with his wings? Can you show me again?
No.
Do it again. Do you do it for that camera and then that camera?
I'll just do it there. It just walks over to you.
Image you like well out of focus, just losing your head. Yeah, okay, I know what you mean.
Yeah, he bounces, and it's a mating dance, and
yeah,
it's just funny, isn't it?
There are some bonkers creatures, but you've got an example of a stunning doc. You can carry the team on this one, can't you? In terms of cinematography.
Ooh. Which one?
I've got two.
I've got bloody two.
Well,
if we're talking one of the ones that like I think's more, I'll go for the one that I think's more visually stunning for now, and then I'll come back to the one that I quite like for nostalgia.
And then we'll
reasons.
sprinkle Shawshank,
And then we'll just sprinkle some Shawshank behind the
Salt
scenes
Bay
in there.
and
Yeah. But like Free Solo is pretty like cracking in terms of how it's done. Like obviously it's with it being rock climbing, it's like a lot of it you can just see so much like scope of everything that's sort of like going on around him. It's nice because it's a lot of landscape. But then on top of that, one of the things that's like really, really impressive about it is the fact that like obviously to get the angles, like obviously he's just like doing it. Is it just Free Solo? Is that what it's called? To climb without a harness?
I thought it was called.
It's something.
Maybe
it's
it is
Free
called
Solo. I don't know if it is. But either way, whatever he's doing, he's just climbing without a harness, and it's a lot. But then obviously so that the crew can get like good shots of him, they're climbing up like the rocks as well, but with like a camera on them. Obviously they've got like a harness because
Yeah.
they don't want to damage the camera.
See, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Though, is that
Not for personal safety. They don't want to hurt that camera.
That's the interesting thing, though, isn't it? That you've kind of got, which is that the crew are doing what the other people are doing to get the footage, and it's so much more kind of immersive that they've done that, I assume.
Yeah, because it's basically like you're up there next to him, and it's like a lot of the time so that you can actually see how high up he is as well. A lot of the time they're just that little bit higher up than him, because that way they can look down. You can
that's the
see
thing. It's no different to
you can see like the whole landscape and like how far up he is.
Yeah.
Whereas if you did it from like if you just did that from like the ground level and looked up, you just see a speck like on a rock. But it just wouldn't look anywhere near as impressive.
Well, it's like, it's like when you see these like videos of people on YouTube and they do like free running and they've got like a GoPro on, and you're watching it and it's just like, you know whatever this uncut footage is just going to be the worst thing if something goes wrong, and that's kind of the feeling I'm assuming it gives you, which is really good, and it's a good way of using cinematography in documentary to add something in the way of like, don't get me wrong, you could do that in a fiction, but you wouldn't believe it. You'd see it in the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You'd sit in the behind the scenes and go, that's amazing that they did that. But in a fiction film, if someone was, Tom Cruise was doing whatever in Mission Impossible, and you could throw something off a camera out of a plane, and you kind of can tell. But with some things, you just would in your head go like, I think they've done that on harnesses or whatever. No one's actually done that for real. Whereas if you can document the fact that the cameraman's doing that, that's something you can only really do with a documentary to prove it. So it's kind of really impressive that you can use it in that way. And I think that's really cool. That's an example of using cinematography in a way where it only works for documentary to better serve a story that's specifically about something. And that's did it win the Oscar?
I think it might.
It won some stuff, I'm sure, but that's probably.
I know that it definitely
got
nominated. That one's on Plus. I might give it a rewatch on Disney Plus.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What was one of the other ones I was gonna like shamelessly bring up because
we'll talk about whatever this year last doc you want to talk about, then we'll probably have to wrap it up after that, I think.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
If there's nothing that you feel like there's a pressing thing that you'd rather.
No, I could talk about anything.
So minding the gap. And you're already sick of it. I've probably mentioned this way too many times already.
Yeah, Scott talks about it a lot.
I don't know. This is probably one of my favourite. This is probably my favourite like documentary.
Is it?
Probably one of. I don't know why. It's just like it's really nice for like certain reasons. It's quite heartwarming to see. Like it's good. I like the reason why it got made as well because it's kind of like you can see because like the main guy is like one of the sort of like the director's essentially like it's about him and two of his close mates.
Yeah.
And you can see why he wanted to make this growing up, but like a lot of this is actually kind of in its own way archive footage because basically it's about them three when they were kids. They used to do like a whole lot of skateboarding together. It's just like it's kind of like you know when you like play on like the old Tony Hawk games and like you leave the start menu off too long and it starts showing you all those fish islands and like,
yeah.
There's like a lot of shots like that of them as kids.
Yeah.
And like, it's just quite cute. But then obviously like you see that and then you see that like, he's obviously went from just filming his mates skateboarding to making a documentary.
Yeah.
Which I think eventually, like that got nominated for the Oscar. I don't think it won.
It's personal though, isn't it? That's why it works, I bet. It's because like it's kind of a case of you've kind of you're the only person who can tell that story with something like that. If you've been filming your whole life, something about I saw a really good short film.
It gives it a lot of like nostalgia though to like see like this fisheye lens on it and like seeing that on like the skateboarders and it's like I never really grew up skateboarding. The main thing it got me nostalgic about was playing on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, but if it makes you feel nostalgic about that, then that's what it feels.
Imagine how it probably makes a lot of people who were skateboarding and doing things because there's a stereotype of these skater boys for a reason. It's because most of them go around filming themselves.
It's a big thing
with fisheye lenses because it's something. It's why a lot of people who start off doing stuff like that end up really enjoying like films and stuff like that because it's a little creative outlet and they. It's really video themselves looking cool.
It's like, and they also want to catch it, don't they, on camera? Because obviously it's like you're practicing until you get it right. Then you get loads and loads of footage of all those attempts naturally from doing it. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much. We're at the end of the bottle.
Ooh, we've timed that bottle well, haven't we?
Not too easy for you off with 4, so that gives me time to wind down. Press the button actually.
Yeah, that's right. We're going for 3 more hours.
Right. So I think we can wrap it up there. Really, it's been good chatting.
I feel like I've covered a lot of what I've wanted to.
No, it's good. We've talked cinematography. We've kept it quite loose for our first episode, just to kind of. I guess it's just been good to kind of like have a relaxed conversation for our first one. We're thinking we're going to see how this goes. We might talk a little bit more specifically about some actual films. As you can tell, we can talk. So we could probably
talk.
Well, we could probably talk about like specific things a little bit more. I mean, cinematography is quite broad, but it's a nice thing to get us kind of chatting a little bit and just practicing kind of this format. So yeah, thanks for everyone if anyone's kind of tuned in. Scott,
thank you all for joining us as we start our adventure. Till next month.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
That would go at
you want a cup of tea?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind actually.
Peace, guys.